As I said at the start, and as I took you into this work, I said ethics is an effort to think systematically, clearly, and sensitively about moral value questions. And there are two phases to it. The hunting and gathering phase, where you ask all those questions, and your mind doesn't want to. We're lazy. You got to push yourself to ask all those questions. And then because our intelligence is what some people call pluriform, there are multiple forms to it, there's so many ways in which we come to truth. Even comedy. One of the spokes of the wheel is comedy. You say, what's comedy doing? Are we supposed to laugh at moral issues? Well, I ask you, is not the cartoon often the smartest thing in the newspaper? Doesn't it often say much more than the editorial? Very often the comedic moment. The ancients discovered that there should be in every place of power a jester whose whole job was to make fun of the boss and everybody in charge. I think we need jesters in the White House, in corporate boardrooms. They needed a jester in those corporations that decided, hey, we're going to bundle a bunch of worthless mortgages together and we're going to sell them like they were worth something. I mean, any jester around would have had a feast with them. It's comedy. Sometimes it's only tragedy. That's another one of the spokes. So all of those spokes are to make your whole mind go to work, your whole consciousness be open to moral reality. Now you might ask, you know what I notice is missing on that wheel model? This is ethics, is it not? You don't have conscience on there. How can you possibly present a model and not have conscience? Well, in chapter 16, I talk about conscience and also about guilt. You see, the reason why conscience is not on the wheel, the model, is the wheel is intended to be a critique of conscience. Conscience is the moral self, attuned to rights and wrongs, shaped and misshaped by all kinds of experiences. It's never perfect in any of us. And the purpose of ethics is to improve it and to make sure that it asks more questions, that it uses all of its 9 forms of intelligence to get to truth. Then you'll have a better conscience. The third part of the book is the part on the hazards of moral and political discourse. Even if we had a perfect method, and there's no method perfect, this is the best I can do. No method is perfect. But even if we had a perfect method, too many things mess up our consciousness. And so I have a whole series of things that mess us up. Myths. I mean, certain myths that we have. For a long time, humanity felt that the myth of woman was that a woman is a creature of the Germans used to say, die Küche und die Kinder, the kitchen and the kids. Just shrink her whole personhood down to the domestic and the sexual. That was a myth, dominant, powerful myth that controlled all consciousness and bollocksed up any kind of ethics we did until creative moral thinking called feminism stepped in. And there's so many other things I talk about, forbidden memories. Every country refuses to face its own history. They're all built upon forbidden memories. We're not allowed to think too much about what we did to the Indians. We're not allowed to think too much about the fact that our U.S. economy was built upon the backs of slaves. And so part of ethics is forcing honesty, thinking through it. I also in this book talk about moods. When you're a kid, you know what mood is. It's hard to define. I try to do it in the book. You know, for example, well, this is not the time to ask mommy for that. What are you thinking of? You know her mood. You've got it. Mood is whole cultures can go through moods. Ethics has got to think about that, and I do in this book. We also have to think about false analogies. Whenever we know something, we compare it to something else. You could do it with your kids. You say, well, Mary was really doing better in math at this age than you are, Johnny. Well, Mary is Mary, Mom, and Johnny is Johnny. They're different. Don't make false comparisons. We went into the Iraq War thinking it was going to be like Germany. They were going to greet us with flowers like the people in France did. Wrong analogy. We talk about that. So there are a number of things like that. And in the final chapter, I talk about the role of religion in ethics and the social sciences. In our country, we think religion has nothing to do with life because in the First Amendment, we took it out of life. Actually, we are intensely religious people, but often don't realize that we got to do ethics even on our religions. And we got to listen to some of the best insights. Some of the people who are very anti-religious and write bestsellers condemning all religious people as stupid would be absolutely amazed if they knew how many of their most cherished ideas and ideals were woven into the human consciousness by religions. In fact, religions are a mess. All of them are a mess to a degree, and all of them are classics in the art of cherishing. So how to go after those religions, get the good stuff, and criticize what's bad. Don't be afraid to do it. It's not irreligious to do it. And so the final chapter of the book talks about that. Thank you.